Hey guys, how you doing? It's KJ coming at you today once again in Raid Shadow Legends, and as you can see, we are partway through this week's Clan v Clan tournament. But today I wanted to talk you through what I consider to be some of the best rares in the game. Now, all of these rares, if you pull them early or mid-game, are well worth a 5-star with some gear or possibly even a 6-star. Some of these I would even recommend you build 2 of if you are early to mid-game or maybe approaching late game. And some of these, even in the late game, if you pull them, you are going to be building them, maxing them out, and investing quite heavily in them. So let's jump straight in. So in the Banner Lords, then, really, there aren't too many here. There's not great rares within this faction. Mentions here would probably only be Valerie, but once again, would probably only be a 5-star. And Dagger would probably once again only be a 5-star. Both be quite useful for faction wars. And you may, depending on what team you're on, you may be able to take them into early dungeon levels as well. But not a great faction for rares. So, onto High Elves then. This is where it gets a little bit better. Of course, you have Alhain, who's one of the starter champions. One of the... I mean, if I was to rank them, I'd put her probably 3rd out of the 4 starter champions. I just prefer another 2 that we'll get onto later on. So, if she's your starter champion, you're going to take her straight to 6-star. She will be your first 6-star. If you pull her early to mid-game, she's well worth 5-star. If you're struggling for faction wars, then you would possibly 6-star an Alhain. Apothecary, early, mid-game, possibly even start of late game. If you pull him, you're going to be 6-starring him. He is a fantastic champion and possibly one of the best support rares in the game. And the same again for Reliquary Tender. Reliquary Tender, if you pull her early and mid-game, is a game-changing support champion. If you pull her, max her, or at least 5-star her with some decent gear, and she will help carry your account, certainly through early and mid-game, approaching late game. Sacred Order then, this one's another one that's a little bit light on good rares. So we have Aethel, who's probably my second favourite of the starter champions. Once again, if she's your starter champion, straight 6-star. You pull her early mid-game, 5-star. If you're struggling with Sacred Order Faction Wars, well worth a 6-star. She is fantastic. War Priest is another rare you get very early on. I think you get her once you finish the first set of campaign locations. Worth a 5-star. Will eventually just become a food champion. She will be outscaled quite quickly, but well worth a 5-star early game. Barbarians then. Honorable mention for Marked. I wouldn't 6-star a Marked, but early game I would heavily consider 5-starring a Marked. Great champion, worth a 5-star early game and possibly even mid-game. Very useful for Barbarian faction wars and can help you out here and there in dungeons if needed. Then, of course, we have War Maiden, probably the best farmable rare in the game, simply because of her A3, when booked, a 100% chance to land, big version of decreased defense. Of course, assuming affinity and weak hits and things like that, but 100% chance when booked to land the big version of decreased defense. And this is a free farmable champion that everyone can just go and get. Now, my favourite rare in this faction has to be Soulbound Bowyer. Early, mid, late game, absolutely incredible champion. In fact, if I pulled her early game, she would be quite a fast 6-star. And if I pulled a dupe of her early or mid-game, I would build a second. I would build a second and I would build a stunned set Soulbound who would help carry you through dungeons and faction wars for quite some time. Right, Ogryn Tribes then. The only rare here I would really consider 6-starring without a second thought would be Bellower. Absolutely fantastic crowd control and damage champion in dungeons and faction wars and campaign. Could be a fantastic campaign farmer. I, on my main, use a Bellower as a campaign farmer. He can really help support your account with crowd control through dungeons and faction wars. Undead Hordes then. We have a few here that are great for clan boss, and also then one that carries from clan boss straight into dungeons. But we'll start with a couple of honorable mentions that would possibly be worth a 5-star earlier on, and that is Seducer and Sorceress. Both are, in my opinion, worth a 5-star if you get them early game and starting early mid game. Beyond that, they're probably going to be outscaled quite quickly by some of the epics within the faction. But the two big ones here are Frozen Banshee and Grave Chill Killer. Grave Chill Killer is just a bonus on top of Frozen Banshee. Outside of being paired with Frozen Banshee, I wouldn't 6-star a Grave Chill. But on an early account, if you have a Frozen Banshee and a Grave Chill paired up in Lifesteal gear, as soon as you have masteries on Frozen Banshee, and assuming they both have the accuracy they need, they will help carry your account through normal, hard, and even into brutal clan boss. Frozen Banshee can actually be run all the way up to Ultra Nightmare clan boss and can be used in dungeons 20 to 25. I've got a Dragons 25 team that has a Frozen Banshee in it. She's a fantastic champion and can be used well into the late game. Now, another honourable mention here is Corpulent Cadaver. He is, for 99.9% of people, absolutely useless. Wouldn't level him. But I have one in the vault because if I ever get to the point where I have a Lydia, Corpulent Cadaver, Krisk, and the other champions required to build the world record clan boss team, Corpulent Cadaver is the one who does the damage. This guy can hit for over 1 million per turn in Ultra Nightmare clan boss on the world record holding team, but it is a very, very niche situation where you're actually going to be using him. Dark Elves then, and this is my favourite faction for rares. So honourable mentions of people you could 5-star would be Spirit Host, early game. Fantastic, nice little speed aura, so great for arena lead or dungeon lead or anything like that if you're struggling for speed and rotating through your skills quickly. Still, Bowyer could be an early game enemy max HP champion, but they don't really come into their own till later on in the game. And Paragon, king of the Paragon cheese, king of the solo unkillable for pretty much all content within the game, minus Iron Twins and Hydra. Fantastic champion, worth a 5-star. Now, I'm going to split the next lot into two groups. So the person I would pick as your starter champion and would instantly 6-star if I pulled early to mid-game would be Kale. King of the early to mid-game carry for damage. Clan Boss can do it. Faction Wars can do it. Dungeons can do it. Campaign can do it. This guy can be used everywhere. Even when you start moving into Doom Tower, this guy can hard carry the damage on your account. And now, the next champion is one I would recommend you build 2 of. And the final champion is one I would recommend you hold 3 of. Don't build unless you need them, but I would hold 3 of this champion if I pulled them. So, Cold Heart, I would 100% recommend you build 2 of her. 2 Cold Hearts, and a reset cooldown champion, like maybe a Pain Keeper. And you can be rotating through Spider 16 to 20 in 30 seconds to a minute. Cold Heart, my Cold Heart on Spider 20 does about 1.7 million damage per turn. So I can rotate through that stage in about 25 seconds with half the damage coming from 1 Cold Heart. And the champion I recommend you keep 3 of would be Pain Keeper. Not only is she part of the easy budget unkillable man-eater comp for clan boss, but 3 Pain Keepers actually enables the unkillable Iron Twins 15 team, and that requires 3 Pain Keepers, a block damage champion, and usually a Geomancer. Other champions can be used, but that's the most efficient way of doing it. So Pain Keeper, build 1, hold 3. Cold Heart, build 2. And if you could build them in Relentless or Reflex gear, even better. So she's going more often and rotating through her abilities faster, getting back to her big single target nuke and turn meter drop. Night Revs, once again, this isn't a great area for rares. Honorable mentions you could 5-star and would be 5-star worthy early game would be Coffin Smasher, Executioner, Crimson Slayer, Renegade. They are the only ones here really I would argue worth a 5-star, and if you got them early enough you could probably with especially a Coffin Smasher or an Executioner. Well, Coffin Smasher mainly, you could 6-star. Executioner, I would probably never 6-star. I would only ever 5-star an Executioner. So, Dwarves then. Once again, this isn't a great faction for rares. This isn't a great faction for rares and epics. Some of the epics in this faction are a bit hit and miss, but I would 100% recommend if you pull a Bulwark or a Khazad, 6-star them. They will hard carry you through. Well, Bulwark can hard carry and be useful in clan boss, faction wars, dungeons. Khazad can be a hard carry for faction wars and dungeons early game. They're also great for secret rooms within Doom Tower when you start progressing through that. There is a Dwarves secret room on, I think it's on the current rotation, that actually these two champions are brilliant. And if I'd have built a Khazad out earlier and actually had one maxed, I probably could have finished that room much faster and much easier. Right, final faction is of course Shadowkin, which weirdly for the newest faction has the worst rares, the worst selection of rares. There is no one here I would 6-star. I would possibly consider taking Adachi to 6-star to 5-star for faction wars. And that is for the block debuffs, small version of increased defense. Then he's got an AoE with a shield on himself and can be a great single target provoke champion. Especially for faction wars, this can come in real handy if you've got a tricky wave where you just need to be guiding them to someone. Build him with high HP and defense and the accuracy you need for where you are. Just A1 cycle him. Try and get the provokes going out so everyone's concentrating on him, allowing the rest of your team to do their damage. Or you'd just take some crowd control champions, but he could be your crowd control champion. So, right, there you go. Right, there you have it, guys. They are my recommendations of rares in every faction that would be worth a 5-star or 6-star early and mid game. And also my mentions of champions within that rarity I would possibly build 2 of. If you think I've missed someone out, let me know down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.